The Cipher Brief, because national security is everyone's business.
All right, I'd like to take a moment now to bring in another perspective on data for a top of mind session. What we try to do with these top of mind sessions is bring in folks for just really quick 5-minute hits on, hey, what have you heard? What are you thinking? What is top of mind for you? So John Eubank is Chief Revenue Officer for Blue Voyant Government Services. And John, before you joined Blue Voyant, you were involved in the DOD's rollout of its big data platform. So I want to pick your brain for just a few minutes on lessons learned from that experience and how it shaped your thinking both on the challenge and promise of data.
Susanna, Matt, thank you for hosting the CIG Winter Summit, and Sue's remarks earlier on the current data environment, spot on, especially the ideas that we've got to unlock our data. We've got to go beyond policy to achieve information advantage. That's really been my passion for the last decade. Undergrad in information systems, master's information management, but really these like petabyte scale data analytic challenges that we've got to get after as the entire federal government, not just the Department of Defense. So I just recently joined Blue Voyant here as Chief Revenue Officer in the government solutions sector. And in the new role, I'm taking big data, massive scale data analytics and looking at how do we defend, primarily from a cyber perspective, our supply chains. As referenced, prior to joining Blue Voyant, I've been working in the offensive cyber community for roughly the last decade, really exploiting our adversaries' data systems. And then before that, led the rollout of the DOD big data platform, Gabriel Nimbus, Elixir, it's got a few different names across the services. But the intent of that was hitting a lot of what Sue was talking about. How do we collect this network data? How do we understand the intrusions into our network? And then how do we make proactive decisions about defending those networks from our adversaries, not just here in the United States, but also our partners across the world? The cool thing about the BDP, as we build up that capability, is now the largest repository, I believe, in the entire world of cyber intrusion data sets and cyber network data sets. So I really want to share today some of the lessons I've learned from that, what we've got to focus on as a community here in the data sector. And just want to start with the world of data. As we all know it, it's evolving every second, every minute. The challenges of today are not going to be the challenges of tomorrow, and the tools that we're looking at today are not the tools for tomorrow. So one of the things, as executives, as leaders here in the cyber community, in the data community, we've really got to be investing a lot of our time in scouting and understanding the tools that are out there, how they're changing, what can we bring in to support and enable our tools? The buzzwords of the day of artificial intelligence and zero trust architectures, the software bill of materials things, those are buzzwords. They're going to go away tomorrow. They're going to get replaced with something else. Well, what can we derive from them, why they're here today? And what value can we get from applying those tools to our data sets? And of course, you really can't get value out of these tools unless, to Sue's point, you've aggregated those data sets. And so in aggregating those data sets, it creates a pretty ripe opportunity for our adversaries to now go after those data repositories that we've put together. I love what the Air Force is doing. They've published their 6 big data platforms that they want to consolidate everything into. They've really gotten out in front with some really good data strategies coming out of the Chief Data and AI Office. Really good visions about we've got to get off hundreds or thousands of data platforms. We've got to bring that down to a manageable number where we can truly understand the data that we're putting into them. We can normalize it. We can put it in appropriate syntax. And most importantly, we can defend a handful of data platforms from our adversaries and not be out trying to defend hundreds or thousands of stovepiped data platforms. And then that value of data, as we're bringing it in, that value is going to change over time. So keeping up with it. In my current role, looking more at supply chain. How can we take the massive amounts of data that are out there, both in the government and the commercial marketplace? How can we understand the value in that data to our supply chain, to defending it, to getting out in front? And then how can we make those proactive decisions about improving our supply chain resiliency? So sort of hitting on that, I think the current model, we're very reactive, whether that's supply chain defense, supply chain monitoring, whether that's network defense, network monitoring. We really, as an industry, as a government, have to work together to figure out how can we get in front of our adversaries. The last year I spent working with teams building cyber exploits. It was really eye-opening for me to understand when the government brings us a target and the current operations of, we build one exploit to use against one target. On the offensive side, they're really pivoting to how do we build one exploit that we can use against hundreds or thousands of targets, and how do we automate the exploitation of our adversary systems. We've really got to take a lot of those same lessons learned and apply them to our internal networks and automate. We need to look everywhere at the processes that are challenging our most technical and brilliant talent and consuming their time. Scaled agile framework in the software development world, very popular right now. It's holding a lot of our teams back. We've got to look at how can we take the best elements of that and then pivot and go do new things and get better value. DARPA's doing some really cool, innovative efforts on the smoke and castle programs and applying AI to cyber defense. Definitely want to take a look at the lessons learned coming out of those. How can we apply those new capabilities across the environment? And then touching on one of Sue's points, regulatory compliance is the bare minimum. That should not be what we're trying to achieve. We need to go well beyond regulatory compliance. We have got to get into that proactive mode, and regulatory compliance is completely reactive. It's trying to hit a bare minimum bar that's several years outdated by the time those policies get put in place. So finally, in my new role, I'm really excited to take on the data challenges of the supply chain community. I look forward to coming up with some new cyber solutions that we can apply here, and look forward to collaborating across the community, understanding the challenges that are out there and how we can do better. So with that, feel free to check me out on LinkedIn, and I will turn it back to Susan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. We really appreciate that perspective from the private sector. I think it's a critical component of what makes this so successful. So I want to thank you and congratulations on your new role as Chief Revenue Officer for Blue Voyant Government Services. It's nice to have you here.